Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. We also got Buble.
We got what?
Bubbly.
Oh, of course. Our sponsor that's not our real sponsor.
You know, if you people started listening and commenting and subscribing a little bit more, Bubbly could totally be a sponsor for us.
That would be the first opportunity.
Yes, first thing that I would reach out for. But anyway, welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed football game number 1 on the season.
Yeah, we're pre-recording this, but I definitely hope we enjoyed it, and hopefully Cam Akers didn't get 2 fantasy points.
I was thinking about it because, like Rick said, this is pre-recorded 3 hours before the game. So I was thinking about it, I'm really excited to see, how the Bills use James Cook and if Gabe Davis actually lives up to the hype. And Cam Akers, does his rushing opportunity stay the same as it was at the end of last year, or does it explode? So I'm excited to have those answers. Obviously, you guys do. We don't.
Yeah.
But nothing we're going to talk about on this show pertains to Thursday Night Football, and typically we will talk about our starts and sits prior to Thursday Night Football. Starting next week, we are on a grinding full season NFL schedule.
Yep. I mean, this is the first week, so...
Yeah. So this is the first starts and sit show of the year, week 1 of the NFL season. Excited to bring in some of the starts and sits. We also are adding a segment at the end where we answer 3, 4, 5 of your questions and discuss some starts or sits, I guess. So players that, we have to make a decision over and help you guys out. So before we jump into starts and sits for week 1, be sure to check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any of the podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below any questions you may have for us. We will get to them expeditiously.
Oh, I like it. Big words.
Yeah, dude. I brought the encyclopedia today.
He's bringing the heat for week 1.
Yeah. Next week, I'll be just brain dead. Sunday's going to be interesting because, when you get through the NFL season, you get like by week 2, 3, 4, usually you're accustomed to figuring out how to watch every game.
Yeah.
Week 1 is a disaster. It's like
I was just thinking that it's just going to be like everything happens.
Screaming things. Oh, this guy scored a touchdown. I'm like, no way. And I feel like I'm missing something. Not watching that game. I have, what is it called? Sunday Ticket. So I'm going to have literally probably every game queued up if I can possibly do that. But I'm going to be so confused. I don't know what's going to be happening because I want to watch players that aren't on my team.
Right. Especially the 1 o'clock window. It's just a tsunami of information and stuff happening.
I can't wait to see Justin Fields. All week, I don't know what it is. Am I just a Bears fan?
You could be. I'm going to watch that game.
I might be a bigger fan of Justin Fields than I am of Mac Jones at this point.
It's kind of tough because they're playing San Francisco week 1, so it might not look great.
Look great, no. But anyway, and there's a lot of teams too, by the way, before we jump into the actual show, that I feel like Chicago, a lot of people are like, well, they just suck. They're bad. They're not going to be a good football team. But they have Darnell Mooney, a good wide receiver. They have a good tight end in Cole Kmet. They have a good running back in David Montgomery. Their quarterback's on the ups. So I'm like, why couldn't they have a decent year offensively without Matt Nagy? Why are we just assuming they suck? It's the same thing for the Detroit Lions. But if they come out week 1 and they both just are trash, then it's like, all right, pack them in.
Yeah,
we were wrong. So we'll see. But I think there should be more hope for those teams. The team that should not have any hope is the Atlanta Falcons. If you're listening to the show and you're a Falcons fan, I do not envy your position.
Yeah, I think they're probably one of the worst. Same with Seattle. Atlanta.
I actually think they could be better than they
Seattle?
look Yeah, but the quarterback situation is pretty horrible.
Yeah, I'm not.
They are idiots. They should have gone after Malik Willis or literally anybody. Kenny Pickett, traded up.
Should have traded for somebody.
Whatever. They're idiots. Yeah, you could have traded for Jimmy G. You could have offered too much.
I don't know if they could have.
Well, yeah, you could offer a 4th-round pick, and all of a sudden the 49ers come beckoning.
Oh, man, a 4th-round pick. Honestly, that's 3 rounds better than anybody else.
I'll say this. We really do got to start. But I'll say this. I'm so sick and tired. If I ran an NFL team, I'd run it like the freaking Rams, where I treat picks like freaking candy and start handing them out. It's like NFL teams are like, I can't give you a 4th-round pick. That's unacceptable. That's ridiculous for a quarterback.
Who's going to be a starter on my team?
Like, I can't give you a 4th-round pick. Unacceptable. I want that guy from Chattanooga.
I'm pretty sure, though, it's San Fran saying no to that, not Seattle not willing to give him
I don't even think Seattle offered anything, to be honest with you.
They might not have, but yeah.
But anyway, I'm excited for week 1. I'm excited for the cluster. I'm thinking about paying for NFL Red Zone because I know people who pay for that, and when I hang out with them, it's actually really great, but I don't have it, so I don't watch it.
I'm pretty sure I do have it. So
you have NFL Red Zone?
I think I got a package where it's Red Zone and Sunday tickets.
It's great, but I get so enraged because a team will be in the red zone, and then they'll stop play, so then they'll jump to another.
Yeah,
game,
see, to be honest, I would rather just watch. Yeah, I would rather just watch the game because it'll jump away from a game that I'm like, no, I wanted to see that. But Red Zone is very good, obviously.
But either way, let's get to starts and sits. Let's start starts and sits for this show. And then we'll get to some questions a little bit later, and we'll try to make this relatively quick. But we'll start with the starts of the week, and then we'll move to the sits of the week. Number 1, we're giving you 3 starts and 3 sits, by the way. Number 1 is Hollywood Brown against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously, things change for teams on a year-to-year basis. So if you're looking at the fantasy points allowed totals and different stuff like that on Fantasy Pros, they're based on last year. Teams might have improved defensively, stuff like that. So really what I look for is 4 weeks of time to really solidify what actual NFL defenses look like before we really take it for what it's worth. I try to mix a lot of information in Fantasy Pros, PFF, stuff like that, just to get a gauge on what people think defenses are going to be. But they are playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Kansas City Chiefs last year, they gave up a lot of fantasy points to the quarterback position, to the wide receiver position. They gave up. I'm trying to find it. Give me 1 second. I should write this information down pre-show, but I can't see. They gave up 22.7, which was middle of the pack, but they did lose some members of their secondary in the offseason, and they pretty much, the whole team itself kind of lost a lot of they're kind of in a transitionary period, the Kansas City Chiefs, where they're transitioning talent at this point. But one of the big notable guys that is not there anymore is Tyrann Mathieu. So the secondary definitely takes a hit. I think that means good things in terms of matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs. But we've talked about Hollywood Brown all offseason. There's no DeAndre Hopkins. There's no anybody there. I haven't checked the practice reports for Rondale Moore, but there's rumors that he might not go Sunday. And if Hollywood plays, it's going to be Hollywood and the 4th wide receiver on the team.
AJ Green,
yeah. So it's at this point, if Hollywood doesn't get 10 targets, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, it's not only that, it's he might not get 10 targets, or he should get 10 targets in a game where we could see the over-under being 60. But by the time it gets through, I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. It's 2 elite offenses. Obviously, D-Hop is suspended. As you said, Rondale Moore is battling an injury. I think he I'm reading this report, injured his hand. So he got injured during practice on Thursday. So at the time we were recording.
Hamstring injury.
So we have no idea. Yeah. I honestly, if I'm just guessing, if I'm just guessing, I would say he's not going to play.
Rondale.
Which
just
means
released a show this week about you.
We did, I know. Right down the toilet.
What happens?
So if that happens, and then I think Ertz didn't practice either. So if Zach Ertz and Rondale Moore don't play, this is best case scenario, but still, if those guys don't play, I honestly think Hollywood could see like 12 or 13 targets. Like, I'm not joking. Like, he's gonna get the ball a lot,
unless there's something that we're not seeing.
Yeah.
In terms, which there is stuff that we're not seeing, but in terms of like what the team is operating, if they just really like a player or Kyler has a connection.
True. AJ Green. Are you saying AJ Green's going to get 10 targets?
No, not even close.
Trey McBride, the rookie.
I also want to note too that Kansas City right now, or Arizona, I should say, for week 1 has a good rating on PFF, I think. Yeah. So anyway. Yeah, I think this is a good week for Hollywood. Even if, some of the situation ends up being a little bit like tougher for Hollywood Brown, efficiency-wise, I think especially in PPR formats, there's a good chance he catches 6-7 passes, and that's fantastic in fantasy football. So I would start him this week.
Yep, that's an easy one.
The second one, which is relatively interesting, is Antonio Gibson versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, we all know Jacksonville is just trash. So, offensively, they might be, making some strides this offseason. I hope. This season. I hope, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think their defense is making any strides. So
very minimal.
Yeah. But there was some stuff being said about Antonio Gibson. So obviously we've had this whole offseason with Antonio Gibson where
roller coaster.
He was up, he was down, he was up, he was down, and then we get to training camp. They draft Brian Robinson. Everyone's like, all right, this guy's probably either going to be, get some goal line work or he's not going to be involved at all. Gets to camp, pushes Antonio Gibson to the side. Gibson's basically going to become the starter, and then he gets shot in the leg. Gibson, meanwhile, is going on the like you would think that, maybe they're like, okay, we want to shift this guy. He always gets hurt. He fumbles a lot. We want to shift him into a different role, maybe pass catching, whatever. That's what he used to do in college. Let's put him there. No, they just stick him on the kick returning team and hope for the best. So obviously, even if Brian Robinson was healthy and playing, Gibson, like if they really did believe that he was going to be the number 2 running back on the team, he has to start at this point. Ron Rivera said, I trust him. We're going to give him the football on Wednesday at his press conference. So I like that. That gets me excited. We don't know how long Brian Robinson is going to be out, but for week 1 against Jacksonville, who's a pretty terrible defense, I would expect Antonio Gibson to touch the ball a lot in this game. He's one of their most skilled weapons outside of Terry McLaurin, and he should have a pretty good chance at having a good week for fantasy football. So I would start him against Jacksonville.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm trying to pull up the stats from last year for the Jaguars defense. I'm pretty sure it was not good. No, it was not. They gave up a lot of rushing yards last year, over 2,000. There was only a couple teams in the league that did that. And yeah, the Jaguars, I think, have improved, but it's been mostly on the offensive side of the ball. The only thing I can think of is Trayvon Walker that's any significant. But they drafted first overall. You've been all aboard on that train. Big Aiden Hutchinson guy.
Love Aiden Hutchinson. I watched
Too much Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks, but I liked him before. He's just he's pure, natural. Like I don't know. Like this is textbook teams overthinking drafts.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that.
It's like Trayvon walked in and he gave the owner a hug, and the owner was like, "Wow, I love this guy."
Yeah, exactly. But I think that being said, Jaguars defense is still not great, right? So, and everything that Ron Rivera said, as you were pointing out, seems to be like Gibson's going to get the ball a lot week 1, and I would expect him to, obviously, with the Brian Robinson situation. I don't think J.D. McKissick is the type of running back you give a ton of carries. He'll be involved in the passing game, but in terms of on the ground, it's going to be mostly Gibson against a poor defense.
Yeah.
So I think Gibson, you're probably a little bit worried about him, but if you're trying to decide about your RB2, he's a good player to slot in there for this week at least and be pretty confident in.
Yep. Let's talk about the third and final start of the week. It is Derek Carr. Give me your thoughts on Derek Carr, Rick.
Well, Carr is playing against the Chargers, who, if you remember last year, those games were absolute shootouts. And the Chargers did some things on defense this offseason, getting Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. But J.C. Jackson is out this week. I think he might be on the PUP.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So he's out this week. So they are missing some key players there. So it should. Mm-hmm. I expect this game to be a shootout. I think the line on this game is pretty high as well. So I would think Derek Carr, especially the first game with Devontae Adams there, everybody fully healthy. I think they're gonna unload the basket, you could say. And I would expect a very high scoring game where Carr just chucks it down the field, touchdowns on both sides. So it's a good game to start Carr. It's also, to be honest, they could be trailing in that game. Not saying the Raiders aren't going to win, but it could be a game where they're kind of behind all game and Carr has to play catch up and just chucking it to Adams.
Right. I think if people have forgotten about this watching football on Sundays, there's a lot of times where, certain players on your team play a really bad matchup and then, they're blowing a team out by the third quarter and they know they're going to win. So they kind of start taking some of those starters out, or they start changing the game plan up a little bit and start rushing the ball more, kill some clock, try to get out of there. And this is not a game where that's going to happen. So I would be shocked if one of these teams blows out the other. It's going to be a close game. They're going to go back and forth. And because of that, that means that I would expect Derek Carr to throw the football. And I agree with Rick. This is a really good matchup for them. And with, they obviously made some improvements defensively this year, but with those improvements basically not playing in this game, I would expect the 18 points a game they gave up to the quarterback position to hold. These games are always shootouts between division opponents, especially in this division this year. So, and these guys, like Rick said, had battles last year. So I think you're going to see, Derek Carr reach that 20-point threshold in 4-point touchdown leagues, and you're going to be happy with that. So, I would start Derek Carr this week. There was an interesting question that doesn't really pertain to the show, but we're thinking about this pre Thursday Night Football. And you guys can yell at us in the comments if we're wrong, but it was Derek Carr or Matt Stafford on Thursday Night Football. And Rick and I both have Derek Carr ranked higher. By
a single spot.
So add us on Monday.
That's one where I definitely could be wrong. But if I had to, if you pointed a gun in my head, I'd probably start Carr. But, we could look like idiots when people watch this show and Stafford got 45 fantasy points.
I know. But anyway, let's jump to the the sits of the week, and talk about the number one guy, who is Breece Hall against the Baltimore Ravens. And this is an interesting one. Now, Rick, I'm gonna let you explain why Breece Hall is a sit this week, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate because it is a tough matchup. 16 points a game. Baltimore gave up last year. Nothing really changed defensively. To the running back position, I should say. Nothing really changed defensively for them. So it's going to be a tough run defense this year. I would expect that to be the case. And because of that, a rookie by the name of Breece Hall with Joe Flacco coming in, I agree. I think it's a sit. But to play devil's advocate, with Joe Flacco starting in this game, right? Would you expect them to run the ball with Breece Hall and Michael Carter a lot more than they normally would, maybe with Zach Wilson?
I would say more, but I wouldn't necessarily say a lot more. I don't think they're just going to run the ball every play, just because Flacco's out there. But they might run it a couple more times, sure.
Okay. And the only reason why I bring that up is because sometimes having more opportunity is a better situation. Joe Flacco doesn't really have an arm, so throwing it to the tight ends and the running backs is going to be big in this game. So there might be some upside for Breece Hall. The concern for me is all of the things that were aforementioned that Rick will mention. But the major concern for me is that we just don't know what's going on with the Jets' backfield. You know, we know they spent, was it a second-round pick on Breece Hall?
Yep.
And they want to utilize him, which they're going to. But my concern is that they also want to use Michael Carter. So if Michael Carter rolls out there and they're using him on pass-catching downs and putting Breece Hall out there for rushing downs, then in PPR and half PPR formats, I think Breece Hall is going to be 1,000% capped this week at least. But we just don't know what the situation is. And to me, I know you spent a 4th, 5th round pick on Breece Hall, and you probably are going to have to roll him out there. But for me this week, I kind of want to see what the Jets do before I just trust in Breece Hall to run on the field and start doing that. But I will say, if you don't have another option, then go with it. But Rick, I'll let you take it away. Before we do that, I have a quick question for you.
Okay, what is it?
Chase Edmonds against New England's poorest run defense.
Okay.
Or if he plays, because there's been practice reports saying that he's missed practice, and assuming Chase Edmonds plays, would you start Chase Edmonds or Breece Hall?
Is it PPR?
Let's say half.
I'd probably have them back-to-back in my rankings, but I think I would lean Edmonds.
Okay.
But it's super close. I'm going to say Wyatt Hall, and it sucks because I might have to start him this week. So I hope you're right with your counterpoints. And there's always a chance with Breece Hall. What I'll say first is that he could break off a big run, right? He could just break off like a 40, 50-yard run because of the talent that he has. And that would be the hope if you are starting him this week. He gets a big player too, but I'm absolutely concerned, especially week 1, because obviously the Ravens have a great defense and Joe Flacco is starting. So those are both negatives right off the bat. Will Joe Flacco dump it off more? Sure, maybe a little bit, but I don't know if that's going to necessarily help Breece Hall because the team is going to get behind early, I believe, and they will be getting destroyed if I had to take a guess, and it's going to force the Jets to throw the football a lot. And to start the game, I believe Michael Carter will start. He's listed as the starter on the depth chart. That doesn't mean he's going to get more touches. I think it's going to be probably close to a split, but to start the game, it'll be Michael Carter. And as the game goes on, the Jets are going to be losing and losing and losing. And who's going to be the third down back between those two guys? I think it's probably Michael Carter over Breece Hall. So those things all concern me. I really don't know what the Jets are going to do to start. I think the people that are saying that Breece Hall is not going to get a lot of work, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he'll get a decent amount of work. He's just not going to get a lot of work. And what he can do with that limited work is going to depend on, what happens in that game. So I'm not confident in it. I'm not confident to start Breece Hall. There's just way, way too many question marks. And again, he could break off a big run and yippee-ki-yay, the day is saved.
Right.
But he could also get like 10 carries for 36 yards and then 1 catch for 10 yards. And that's about it. That's his day. So, or 2 catches for like 15 yards, something like that. So I would definitely be concerned. And I just want to see it. I like Breece Hall long-term, and I've said this before on this show. I like him long-term, but in the short term this week, I'm not super happy about it. And coming from someone who might have to make that decision, I have Tony Pollard on my bench, who I never would start over Breece Hall. But in week 1, where he's got the Buccaneers and he's probably going to be a slot receiver hybrid / running back in a PPR league versus Breece Hall, it's something that I'm legitimately having to think about.
Yeah. It's a tough decision. It's a tough move. Unless it's like really, really close, I would sit Breece Hall.
Yep. Me too.
All right, let's move to the number 2 guy, Jalen Waddle. This one's a little hotter. Jalen Waddle versus the New England Patriots. Jalen Waddle was drafted in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, somewhere in that vicinity, close enough. But he's playing the New England Patriots. Now, obviously, New England lost J.C. Jackson. Their defense has lost some elements to it. So it's not going to be the same prolific defense last year that had people struggling in fantasy football. And Jalen Waddle, I think, in both games cooked the Patriots.
Yeah, I think he did.
I'm not entirely sure, but you have an interesting situation with the Dolphins as a whole. They're coming in, new coaching staff, right? New offense. You still have Tua. Nothing really looks different with him at quarterback. And then you add Tyreek Hill. And typically the matchups between the Patriots in the past have been low scoring, especially over the last 2 or 3 seasons. They haven't been these high scoring affairs where both teams score 30. It's usually, last year, week 1, the Patriots lost 17-14 or something stupid like that, or 17-16. It was just, there's no point scored. The line is low for this game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring. I don't think that there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of opportunity. I think Mike McDaniel's probably going to try to just establish the run and try to, set things up offensively. Either that, it'll come out and they'll just try to chuck the ball. Could go either way. But I think that with the addition of Tyreek Hill and some other things, that's going to decrease the target share for Jalen Waddle, unfortunately. There is also rumors, by the way, I totally forgot about this when we were creating these show notes, but there are rumors floating around that he will not play this week. He practiced in full on Thursday. All right. So that
maybe those rumors are.
I would say he's going to play, but he was dealing with an injury this week. So I think all of this stuff, like everyone's expecting last year Jalen Waddle, and if you draft him as your second wide receiver, and that's who you got to run with. Typically, I'd say week 1, just watch it happen, and then you can solve your problems later. Because you don't know what your team's going to look like, and you don't know how defenses are going to react, and you don't know how Mike McDaniel plans to use these guys. So it could go either way, but I feel in my soul that there's only so many targets to go around in this offense. I don't think they're going to treat Tua any differently than the 49ers treated Jimmy Garoppolo last year, who the whole entire offense last year with Trey Lance and his starts and Jimmy G's starts and all of that stuff, they threw it 500 times. So 500 pass attempts for a football team where people expect both wide receivers to get 130, 140 targets and be wide receiver ones. I just think it's going to be tough, and I think this week is going to be a week where people start Jalen Waddle and then go, oh, what the heck? Why isn't he scoring? Why isn't he getting targeted? What's going on with this? And are just disappointed. So I would sit him against New England.
Yeah, I don't hate this one either. I do think Waddle's going to have a floor. I think he'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think he's going to play as well as people expect. And he is going to hurt people potentially this week against the Patriots for all the reasons you said. And the Patriots defense, it's not, I don't think it's going to be as good as it was last year either, but it's still a Bill Belichick coach defense that I think will play pretty good. I do think it's going to be a low scoring game. There's definitely some concern with the Patriots offense. So I could see it being a low scoring game. And I think the Patriots might also force the Dolphins to try to run the ball and play heavy on guys like Hill and Waddle and see who else can beat them. That's usually how the Patriots play football. They'll target those top players. And then if the Dolphins win by Cedric Wilson and Mike Gesicki, then so be it, So I think that's possible. And I think Waddle right now is being ranked as a top 16, 17 wide receiver this week. And I don't see it happening. I don't think he finishes inside the top 20 this week among the wide receivers. Again, has a decent floor. I think he's going to get a couple catches. He's not going to put up a goose egg, but I just don't see the boom out of him, out of maybe some other guys that you drafted in the rounds 5 or 6 that you put on your bench that you could potentially start.
Now that we said this, Jalen Waddle is going to score 30.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns.
All right, and then the last guy that we have is Kirk Cousins versus Green Bay. Take it away, Rick.
Yeah, this one is not. I don't know. It's kind of a tough one because Kirk Cousins, I think, is going to have a pretty good year. I like the Vikings offense. I also like the new head coach, and they're running that Rams scheme. But it is the first game with that, and it's against Green Bay, who this year might have a top 5 to 6 defense in the league. They already have had good defenses in the past. They had a decent defense last year, and they used their first 2-round picks to go get defensive players. and through the Devontae Adams trade, and then the first round pick they already had. They went defense heavy.
Yeah.
So they're clearly trying to build that defense to be a super unit kind of. So I would be a little concerned with Kirk Cousins. Again, another player where I don't think he's going to do bad, but there's just quarterbacks out there this week that I think will do better. Obviously it's pre-recorded, but guys like Matt Stafford who are getting drafted in his range that you might have to make a decision with. I think he's going to have a better week. I think Derek Carr is going to have a better week than Kirk Cousins. I just don't think he's going to have a top 10, top 12 finish playing against that defense. Won't have an awful week, but isn't going to have a good enough week to start.
Yeah, I agree. Last year, too, the quarterback position, I believe the Green Bay Packers were 10th to 12th.
Yep. And they got better.
Right, and they got better. So they gave up 17 points a game to the quarterback position in 4-point touchdown leagues. A very difficult matchup for Kirk Cousins. I do think that it won't necessarily be an absolutely horrible week, but to me, the way that I look at it is I feel like if you're in this position right now where you're deciding between Kirk Cousins and somebody else in week 1 when you probably should have drafted one of the top 12 quarterbacks in your draft, that's a little bit difficult. You might have drafted Kirk Cousins, but if you're in the decision this week where you were just like, I'm streaming, you didn't get a quarterback, you're going to the waiver wire, you drafted Kirk Cousins later saying, I'm going to do this. I think there's some other options for you. Possibly on the waiver wire, possibly that you drafted that you can start at quarterback than Kirk Cousins this week. So I would say he is a sit. And there you have it for starts and sits for the week. Quickly to end the show, we have a couple of questions that you guys provided for us on our many platforms. And we're going to try to answer them as best we can. But the first one, Rick, is interesting. It's Darnell Mooney or Juju Smith-Schuster.
Of the 3 questions, I think this one might be the hardest for me. I have him ranked very close, but I got to go with Darnell Mooney. He's my guy all off season. I've been on the Mooney train. It's not a great matchup for him, while Juju has the better matchup, but I'm riding with Mooney. It's close though, only a couple spots. So if you want to say Juju, I'm not gonna hate.
I don't know. Did you hear what Patrick Mahomes said?
Yeah, it's a wide receiver by committee.
Yeah, essentially. So I don't like that. I don't like that comment.
Gross.
But Juju is the wide receiver 1. Somebody's got to get the ball. Last year, Arizona gave up 24 points a game to the wide receiver position. So while I don't think this offense is going to be as efficient without Tyreek Hill, I do think Juju is going to get a healthy target share. This is an easier matchup for him, and I would start Juju over Darnell Mooney this week if you have to make that decision. I don't know. I think the draft capital, they were in the same round. Is that right?
Just about, yeah.
So if you want to go, and the other thing too is that at this point, like it's very close to me, and because we haven't seen football yet, I'm going to take the wide receiver on the better offense. So
fair. Probably a better matchup. Yeah, Cardinals versus the 49ers.
I would start Juju this week. Take all of this information as you will, because you probably need an answer, and Rick and I are providing different ones.
Yeah. I mean, you make more logical points with Juju, but just personally, I would rather start Mooney.
Yeah. Fair enough. The second one is Elijah Mitchell or Travis Etienne.
This
one together, Rick. Say this one together.
Yeah. Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Travis Etienne.
Not even close.
Yeah, James Robinson. I tweeted this out. I made a TikTok about it as well. But Cam Akers last year, first game off the injury, off the torn Achilles, 7 months removed from an Achilles, had 3 carries for 5 yards?
Yeah.
Or 5 carries for 3 yards, actually, I think it was. I think it was worse than that.
Yeah,
it was not
even worse.
Yeah, and in the playoffs, he sucked. He was not good. So James Robinson might be playing this weekend. Everybody's got their pants off because James Robinson is active, ready to go. But I don't think he's going to really do much. I honestly don't. Maybe 6 or 7 carries for 20 yards, I think would be a good mark for him. I don't think they're going to want to use
Looks like we lost Rick. Right at the end of the show. But yeah,
it's against Washington.
Oh, there he is.
Not a tough matchup.
There he is. You cut out for a second.
Did I freeze on you?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I was like, all right,
I was just saying that. I don't know, where did I cut off?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, basically, Robinson is not going to get a lot of work.
Yeah.
And even if for somehow they give him a decent amount of work, Etienne's going to get the passing work. So, and it's against Washington Commanders, who don't have a great defense. So start Travis Etienne.
Mitchell does have a good matchup against Chicago, so I don't think he's a bad play this week. I would just play Travis Etienne over him. If you drafted Etienne in the 3rd or 4th round and Mitchell in like the 5th or 6th, then there's a good chance that just based on draft capital, you should probably start Etienne. If they were a lot closer in ADP and you somehow got them at like the turn and you had 5 running backs you drafted first, something stupid like that, then and it was a decision. This is probably a dynasty question, to be honest with you. Because my mind always goes to redraft, and I'm like, why would these people already have these problems? But it's dynasty. It's dynasty fantasy football. I'm like, I was looking at another league where I'm tanking, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try because you never know. But it's hard. It's hard out here. Getting some starts. I have to start Hardman week 1. This is my wide receiver too.
Hey, I'm there. I'm tanking in one league, and I'm half tempted to just bench everybody, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start my best available guys. Yeah. And you got to start 3 receivers in this league and 2 flexes. So I think I'm starting one of Corey Davis or Kenny Golladay this week, and we'll see how that goes.
But anyway, I would start Etienne. I think, as I've thought about it over the last couple weeks, regardless of what James Robinson does, I think he's definitely going to be employed as an Alvin Kamara-like running back, Travis Etienne, especially if Robinson does get work on the ground. But I think the pass catching work, especially in half PPR and PPR leagues, is going to allow Travis Etienne to have a large and effective role with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I would start him over Mitchell this week and run with it. It really isn't that. It's close, but it's not like a super, super hard decision for me. Final question, Miles Sanders or Rashad Penny? I don't know why see this again. This is a decision. Not really sure why you got to make this one, but
this is another gross one. Do we know if Kenneth Walker's playing? Is he going to be active?
So. I can check, but I don't believe so.
Okay, because that might change my mind, but I'm going to say Miles Sanders over Penny week 1, just because
status for Monday
his matchup is significantly better. I think the Seahawks are going to be losing this game from the start against the Broncos. I don't think it'll be a close game either. Seahawks might have to play some catch-up ball. And the opposite could be the case with the Eagles-Lions. I don't think that game will actually might be close, but I do think the Eagles will probably have control. And I think it's, if Miles Sanders is going to be decent this year, it's going to be against a team like the Lions, who improved slightly on defense, but still have a lot of holes on defense.
Yeah, I would start Miles Sanders too.
Kind of gross, though.
It is kind of gross, but they do have an easier matchup. I'll probably rank him just outside the top 20, though.
Miles Sanders?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's even inside my top 24, so.
Yeah, so.
But another guy, I think I have Sanders and Penny only 2 spots different from each other, so it's not like it's crazy.
I do have good feelings about Penny, but they are going to be in a situation where they're losing a lot. I would imagine that this game against Denver is going to be, I don't know why Russ would have any sort of feelings of revenge. But hey, it's a revenge game. You're playing your old team. Why did they do this, by the way, in like the same week for pretty much everybody? Like it's a great game, but like Baker's playing the Browns.
It's the drama of the NFL.
It's the drama,
that's
but
why
like, why would you not space the drama out a little bit?
No, bro. Have it all at once. It's different days, Sunday and Monday.
That's true. But anyway, I would start Miles Sanders. There are your questions for the week, and there is your starts and sits show. All things starts, all things sits. We answered some of your questions. hopefully this helps you as you move forward into week 1. Enjoy the Sunday football. It's going to be great. Smell the fall air. Watch some NFL and listen to that CBS soundtrack. See you later, guys.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.